We ready? Thanks again for being here. We had a few more people here, and we appreciate you coming out tonight. We have a lot of important things to talk about and some recognitions tonight. The Hoover Board of Education meeting is now called to order. If you choose, would you please join me in a silent prayer? We'll remember that July 4th is here and what this country means to us. Amen. If you would, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. White, would you call the roll to establish a quorum, please?
Deanna Bowman. Ted Kelly.
Here.
Herman Kendrick. Amy Madonna.
Here.
Amy Johnson.
Here.
Ms. White, Mr. Kendrick should be here any moment. He's out of town with a close relative, had some minor surgery, and I think doing well. He's been driving very fast to get here. Ms. Bowman also, one of her children had an issue while on vacation. Everybody's fine, but she said, please excuse her. She, like any of us, doesn't ever want to miss a meeting. But things are well. She is home taking care of our daughter who's recovering. Thank you. The quorum's been established. You have before you for today's board meeting the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Now is the fun time of our meeting for all of us, recognition time. Mr. Gaston, do you mind?
Thank you, Mr. Kelly, board members, Superintendent Dr. Murphy. You'd think in the summer there'd be a lull with recognitions. That's not the case with Hoover City Schools, quite the opposite. So we appreciate everyone who's taken the time to be here tonight as part of our recognitions. On the screen here, you'll see two of our student athletes. One that just graduated, class of 2018. One is a rising senior, both at Spain Park High School. It's remarkable to have one of these players in your school system, but to have two is exceptional. The 2018 Gatorade Alabama Soccer Players of the Year. And then beyond that, not only Hoover City Schools, but at the same high school. So I know Spain Park High School is very proud to celebrate them. Coach Matt Hall is with us tonight. I've asked him to come forward since I know very little about soccer, and he is going to explain to us very briefly the significance of this award. And if you look up here, you will see Brooks Rice. He is FaceTiming us from Duluth, Minnesota, where he is already playing on a semi-pro soccer team ahead of college this fall, so that's why he is unable to join us. I believe his mother is here tonight. Would you please stand up? All right. Thank you for being here tonight. Christy, correct? Thank you. And then we also have Jasmine Green and her mother, Tony. And Jasmine, if you will come up as well. Coach Hall.
Dr. Murphy, members of the board, I appreciate this moment to recognize these athletes. The Gatorade Player of the Year is an award awarded by the Gatorade Company to recognize players for exceptional not only athletic skill, but also academic and community service work they do. And both these players are very worthy of it. Brooks, for us this past season, scored 37 goals, had 11 assists, scored 84 goals over his career for us, was first team All-State, first team All-Metro, and as you see, he is in Duluth, Minnesota, semi-pro ball. He is committed to the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, Division I school, where he'll be playing soccer, so he's getting some experience there, playing against some collegiate players and some adult men up there as far as getting ready for the season coming up. But both these individuals are great students. They're great ambassadors and representatives of the Hoover community and of Spain Park High School.
Jasmine, and I play as a forward at Spain Park, and this year the team did really good, and we made it the farthest that I've ever experienced, which was the second round of playoffs. And I've verbally committed to Furman University in South Carolina in Greenville.
Yes. Brooks, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, great. Technology's working tonight. How are things in Minnesota?
Cold.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thanks for representing so well. And tell us very quickly how it's going on the semi-pro team, if you would.
It's going good. We're sitting in second place right now. Our final game is Friday. If we win that, we go to playoffs. So we'll also qualify for the U.S. Open Cup again, which is possibly we can play pro teams next season. So sitting good, sitting third leading goal scorer, 3 goals so far. It's the youngest kid, least amount of play time. So things are looking good so far.
Awesome.
That's
Well,
terrific.
very proud of you, and thanks for representing Hoover City Schools so well.
Thank you.
All right. Yes. Miss Tony Green, the mother, is here tonight. And Mr. Green, if you all would please stand so we may recognize you as well. The Hoover High Scholars Bowl team had quite a year. This is a photo that I took in the courtyard back in May when State Treasurer Young Boozer was here to present a check for one of their many accolades. Mr. Joshua Rutsky, their team sponsor, is here, and he's going to give us an overview of his season.
Dr. Murphy, board members, thank you for your time today. Just to put into context where Hoover City is in terms of academic competition in the state, I know that Mr. Hewlin has always said champions in everything we do is the motto that he wants Hoover to have. And in the last 10 years, Hoover City has accounted for 6 of the 10 state championships in academic competition. Hoover High School has accomplished even more. We've managed 8 state titles, 4 in a previous league before the unification of the 2 leagues, 4 in the current ASTA League, and 1 television title as well. We have made a priority to represent the state of Alabama outside of the state with pride and with dignity, but we also want to make sure that everybody knows that this is the academic place to be. And we're very proud of our students. This year, our state team topped anything that we have ever had at Hoover High School. They were the first team in the history of the state of Alabama to go completely undefeated in state during the season. They did not lose a single match. When you consider that they played 10 matches in a single tournament, their record was over, I believe it was 52-0 in state play this year, which is truly remarkable, something that I don't think will ever be matched. They are an outstanding group of kids. We finished the year with a top 20 finish at 1 national tournament. Unfortunately, our flight was delayed and we were forced to miss the first 7 rounds of the second national tournament that we were playing in. And that was very sad, but we did finish 73rd place, and we did defeat the other teams that we actually got to play. So we felt good about that. I'd like to take just a moment to introduce the 3 players who are here tonight. First, our junior who will be returning next year, now a rising senior, Andrew Mufflali. Can you stand up, please? And then also here is Rashik Hambal, who will be attending Case Western next year. And our captain, Joseph June, who will be attending the University of Pennsylvania next year. Our 4th team member, Andy Kong, will be going to Carnegie Mellon. He unfortunately could not be here as he's on a plane right now from China. But these are the finest students that you will ever see competing for Hoover City. It has been my pleasure to work with these children, now adults. And I'm extraordinarily proud of them. Thank you.
Congratulations.
third and final recognition this evening comes from our Hoover City Schools CMP Child Nutrition Program. Melinda Bonner, Tricia Nerd, they were recognized this past school year by ASAFER, the Alabama Association of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. So that you can see their awards there on the screen. They also are in large part responsible for the bus you may have seen outside, the Meals in Motion bus. Get to that screen right there. There it is, set up at the Hoover Public Library. That's been a huge partnership, not only with the library, but also the Hoover Helps Foundation and various other entities, all the way up to the federal level, including the USDA. So Ms. Bonner would come forward and give us a very brief overview of this program.
Dr. Morphy and Board, I am so pleased to say that for the first time in the history of Hoover City Schools, we've been able to supply summer feeding for our students in any child under the age of 18. Just to give you some statistics, our first month that we fed lunch at the Hoover Public Library, we served 4,442 lunches to students in Hoover. And this would not have happened without the help of Hoover Public Library. Jeremy Davis is in the back, the children's director, and this has been a wonderful collaboration to bring students to the library, and while they're there for the events or reading, have a lunch on us. Also, the bus that you see out in the parking lot, that was created with donations from Hoover Helps and different industries came together. And it has just been a wonderful eye catcher, and people have stopped, and there were signs out that were provided by the library, and people from all walks of life have come and said this is such a blessing, and thank you so much.
Melinda, some of the board went up and visited one day, and it was amazing. You had Head Start buses that were there, people, it wasn't restricted to just Hoover. Jeremy was there, we talked while we were at the event. Really, really something. And it happened to rain that day. The library very courteously let the children and the parents that were there with them come inside, and just very inspiring.
And that's an option. You can eat outside. The library's provided tents for those that want to eat outside, like a picnic. And then every day they can eat inside. And then that is also our rain plan. It is a USDA funded program. And it is inspected by the Alabama State Department of Education, and our audit was last week, and they told us to not change one thing. It was the most organized summer feeding they had seen. I'd like everyone to stand up that has been a part of the Meals in Motion. We have 3 of our managers from Hoover City Schools, Marnette Laughlin, Karen McCall, and Anna Mitchell, and our bus driver, Mr. David Allen, in the back. And like I said, Mr. Jeremy Davis from the Hoover Public Library, and Tricia Mira, my right arm. I'm assistant director here at Hoover City Schools. Thank you.
Linda, and to Tricia, again, we didn't acknowledge you so very much, but Linda, you're lay leader of the year.
Yes.
And active schools champion of the year is Tricia. And to all of those who've helped us serve the meals, thank you so much. We're proud of all of you. Thank you.
All right, and I believe the bus will be here for the duration of the meeting.
Yes.
Correct. I've seen several people actually taking photos outside. It's a cool backdrop, and tours are available should you want them. So that concludes our recognitions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Mr. Kendrick. We'll give him a second. This is part of our public recognition time. Is there anyone here that would like to come up and speak before the board and public?
Board members, next we have action items, and I'd like to recommend that you approve the minutes of our regular board meeting June 5, 2018.
Have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Passes. Next item on the agenda will be the personnel actions. Dr. Murphy, would you review those, please?
Yes, again, I'd like to request your approval of the personnel report. I will note that there are 3 new positions posted here. One is to provide us additional support, as we'll add additional routes with our rezoning. We're requesting a new position, which is for transportation shop assistant. We continue to look at our custodial services and our.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Personnel actions passed. Dr. Murphy.
Yes, so I'd like to ask any principals who are in the audience with any of your new employees to stand and introduce those employees to us. Mr. Hewlin, I see you rising.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce 2 new assistant principals at Hoover High School. I'm very, very thankful to the board for approving those folks tonight. We definitely need that help over there. And at retirement, and then Carrie Leslie also moved to another school. So I was very excited about getting these 2 folks in. First was Miriam Moore. Miriam comes to us, and she's currently assistant principal at Woodlawn High School. Has done a variety of different duties over there, from previously teacher and coach, math coach, and has also had a wide variety of experiences as assistant principal, from CTE to different things. So we're going to put her to work very quickly on that. So welcome and join.
So Dr. Murphy and the board, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with you this school year.
Glad
Thank
you're
you.
here.
Glad you're here.
And from within Hoover High School, Ms. Donna Smiley, to sit out the way here. Donna was currently a biology teacher at Hoover High School. I kid her all the time. She did her administrative internship with me, so she learned everything she needed to know. A lot of things she probably didn't need to know. Has done a great job for us on the classroom, but I asked her to do a tremendous task about 2 years ago and actually start our diversity council because of the changing demographics at our school. And she has done a phenomenal job with pushing out that PD to not only our staff, but now we're starting to do that with our kids too. So it's a great experience for us at Hoover High School. So I want to welcome Donna Smiley. And I guess the family members here too.
Good evening, everyone. To Dr. Murphy and the full board, I want to thank you for this opportunity. Under the direction of Mr. Hewlin, I have learned so much since becoming a part of the Hoover family. I'm willing to serve, and I'm excited about this new opportunity. To whom much is given, much is expected. And Hoover offers much, and I am willing to give much more. None of this will be possible without the first concept of family first. So with me tonight, I have, if they would stand, 2 of my 3 siblings. My niece, who was also headed to Alabama to play softball. I have 2 of the most wonderful people I could ever have in my life, and those are my children, Jeffrey and Dakota. They are students here in Hoover, and they are the reason why I decided that I will give you my absolute uttermost, determined to get it to you best. Thank you.
Thank you.
While Mr. Hewlin is still standing, board members, I'd like to share with you that Mr. Hewlin's retirement is effective December 31, and he is going to continue to serve in his capacity as principal through December 31, at which time we'll revisit naming an interim to help us complete the remainder of the year. And so, Mr. Hewlin, thank you for staying seated and serving us so well.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I see Ms. Stacy Stocks.
Yes, ma'am. I have 3 brand new members of the Greystone family that I would love to introduce. We have Lindsay Lillo Taylor, who is joining us as an instructional support aide after serving as a sub and then working through Appleton as we had a retirement. So we're so excited to have Lindsay with us. Her children went through Greystone, so she's already part of our family. We have Ariel Moore. Ariel is coming to us from another district and will be teaching 4th grade. And Thomas Howard, who this is going to be his first. He's had lots of jobs, but this is the first teaching assignment. And he was teaching 3rd grade for us. Student taught with us in the fall, and we're impressed, and we're just anxious to get our hands on them. So we're excited to have all 3 of these joining us.
Great.
Congratulations.
It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Autumn Jeter, who will be joining us in the position of Director of Curriculum and Instruction. She has her family with her.
Yes, Dr. Murphy, Dr. Dotson, Dr. Simmons, thank you all for giving me the opportunity. I'm excited about joining Hoover. And with me tonight, and we are longtime Hoover residents, since early on, before the children. But with me tonight, I have my husband, Judge Reginald Jeter, and our two children who are students at Bumpus, well, will be in the fall, Jordan Jeter, wave your hand. He'll be a 7th grader at Bumpus. And because of rezoning that we're very excited about, I will have a 3rd grader at Brocksgap, and this is Joshua Jeter. Wave your hand, Joshua. So we're excited to be joining the Hoover family, and I just bring a diverse background and education to the table, and I'm ready to get to work as well. We'll be some hardworking people. Thank you. Yes.
Do we have any others who've just been approved? Maybe your principal couldn't make it, but you're here. Well, thank you so much. We're excited to have all of you come on board with us, so thank you.
The job description for a psychological behavior specialist is before you. Dr. Murphy, do you mind reviewing that?
Yes, board members, as we've continued to have conversations about addressing mental health issues in our school district, you've had opportunity to hear some presentations from Anna Whitney and the committee that she chairs. This is part of that work to bring to you a request for you to approve a job description for a psychological behavioral specialist. We have pushed a good bit of this work out over time for a consultant to serve us, but we believe that we can be served best by pulling that from consultant work to bringing someone in-house who's 100% of the day committed to us and to our students. So our first step is to say to you, this is a job description. We vetted this with our attorneys. Melissa McKee, I believe, has worked with us on this. And so my request this evening is that you approve the psychological behavior specialist. I would expect likewise that you'll hear from us next week. Excuse me, let's not have a board meeting next week. Next month, and with the possible recommendation of someone to come on board all day, every day, supporting our children in this area. My recommendation to you is the approval of the job description for psychological behavioral specialist.
Do I have a motion to approve the job description for psychological behavior specialist?
So moved.
Second. Are there any questions from the board, from the public? All in favor? Aye. And this passes. Thank you, Dr. Murphy. We now have business action. Dr. Murphy, would you review that?
Yes, would like to ask Tina Hancock to come join us, and there will be 3 recommendations here. One is for us to approve our monthly financial statement for May 2018. Our cash disbursements for May 2018, $3,632,862. And the third request under this action item will be to approve payroll June 2018 for $7,403,282.06. For the details, I defer to Ms. Hancock.
Thank you, Board. Before you have the attached financial statements for the month ended May 31st, 2018. These are based upon the reconciled bank statements through the end of May. For the FY18 budget, 79.7% of our budget revenue has been received for the 8 months ended May 31st. The difference as compared to the prior year is a favorable $4.1 million, which is attributed to an increase in tax receipts. The results of operations represent 8 months of activity. Approximately 67% of the budget will be anticipated to have been spent for recurring expenditures. General fund expenditures are 66.36% of budget, and $1.2 million more than the May period of FY17 due to the technology refresh, student support contracted services, furniture for rezoning and River Chase Career Center, and Brock's Gap awning. General fund expenditures year to date are $6.4 million more than the year to date of May 2017 as a result of the purchase of River Chase Middle, the Hoover High Band Room, Greystone Playground, and the high school's turf and track projects. Special revenue fund expenditures were $15.3 million, or 77.6% of the budget. Special revenue expenditures were $463,806 year to date more than May FY17 due to local school professional development, local school maintenance and repairs, and equipment.
Questions?
Any questions?
I will, do I have a motion to approve the business action? Second.
Second.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
This passes. Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Board members, before you have bid number 2018-8 for Gwen Elementary School Foundation Stabilization, which I believe, Dr. Murphy, you'll explain We thought we were gonna have to fix this outside of a bid, state code, but now we have to come.
Yes, so Tracy, we did ask for their approval as an emergency. Do you want to address this with us at this point?
Yes, ma'am. We did put it out to bid, and our budget was $150,000, coming in at $135,700.
Okay, so below budget.
Yes,
Okay, and the lowest bidder is Parrot Structural, and we did have 2 responsive bidders, and I do request that you approve the lowest bidder in this project, which is $135,715 for bid 2018-08.
We've done business with them before,
we have.
successfully, I'm sure.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Board members, we have a motion to approve bid number 2018-8.
So moved. Second.
Questions? Any questions from the board?
What's our timeline on this again?
We have already started the preliminaries
Okay.
and hope to have everything complete by June or August 4th.
Okay. Very good.
Any questions from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This passes. Thank you, Dr. Murphy.
Hang on this for a second. Next, Mr. Kelly, we have a request for bid 2018-09. This is for waste management. 2 responsive bidders on this. The lowest bidder was Advanced Disposal. And again, Tina and Mr. Hobson working with us on this. And my recommendation is your approval.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept bid number 2018-09 as per the superintendent's recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
This passes. Thank you, Dr. Murphy.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.
Next item is a request from our salary schedule committee. There are 2 requests, G and H on your agenda. I'm gonna ask Tina if we have questions that she would be prepared to respond to. Basically, what we have is that our salary schedule committee is recommending that we increase the personal days for all classified employees. These are individuals who do not hold certificates, that we increase that from 2 days to 5 days. That then allows our classified employees and our certificated employees to be treated in similar fashion, and that all would then have 5 days. And in the case of all those employees, they would pay for the 3 days if they took those above the 2 that the school district supports. So this is about just parity, consistency, fairness as it relates to how we treat our classified and our certificated. Further comments on that, Tina?
This is something that the salary schedule committee has been reviewing, and as Dr. Murphy said, this is really just for parity and make everything equitable.
I would like to recommend board members your approval of the additional 3 days for classified employees to allow them to be consistent with certificated. Again, understanding that the 3 days would be paid by the employee at a determined rate, which is the same for for certificated, where they pay a certain amount for the days they take off beyond 2.
The motion to increase the personal days from 2 to 5 on the employees that are outside of that currently.
So moved.
Second. Any questions from the superintendent of the board? Or any questions from the public? This was, as Ms. Hancock said, part of the public meeting we discussed, the salary committee that's met. So this was a public item before us. There's been some research done. Steve, you here?
No, Steve is on vacation this
Good
week.
So this is not just done just by a simple recommendation. There's some research done here, and vacation days that aren't taken, it's my understanding that they accumulate at the end of a career possibly of an employee. And like Dr. Murphy said, this is not an expense to the district. This is just getting in line with some that weren't there. So I think it's very good. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This passes. Thank you very much.
The second recommendation that we have before you, again from the salary schedule committee led by Ms. Hancock, is for our directors and coordinators to all receive 15 vacation days per year. Currently, we have 7 of 18 directors and coordinators who are treated differently in that they only have 10 vacation days. Again, this is simply trying to make sure that all of our coordinators and directors have the same number of vacation days allocated to them. Again, about consistency and fairness. Ms. Hancock, anything further on that?
Yes, this is not gonna be a very large cost to the system for those extra days for those employees, and again, just making everything equitable.
Okay, do I have a motion to increase the vacation days for directors and coordinators? Second?
Second.
Any questions from the board or the superintendent? Any questions from the public? Again, this was part of the public meeting, I think last month, not before. So this information's been looked at again, by you with, favorable comments, and we just value our employees. This is just housekeeping for the most part. Over time, things were done with different superintendents, different, boards. So this is just getting this in alignment. And, please trust that your board and your superintendent staff are very, very conscious about the cost of benefits as much as they are salary. So thank you to the employees for being there, for giving us this opportunity. All in favor? All opposed? This passes. Thank you.
Ms. Hancock, if you'll stay with us. We have next on our agenda the reimbursement resolution. This is a recommendation coming from Ms. Hancock, and I'm going to give her opportunity to share what this means to us.
And I'm gonna ask Mr. Hayward Bush, you board members, you have met him before, but he can sum this up much better than I can.
That's the reason I defer to you.
Can I turn?
Yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Murphy, thank you all for letting us be here tonight. I understand the board has had a chance to review the resolution. It's an entire page with one exhibit. This resolution on reimbursement matters really concerns future or potential capital expenditures by the board for projects. I know you keep a list on the drawing board and it's been made available to us. So what you have has been included in this package. What this resolution consists of is non-binding action by the board, okay? Now, what it does is preserve your options as to how you may finance capital expenditures in the future. If you choose to spend your own funds for them, and you shall have adopted this resolution, then if in the immediate future you decide that you would like to recoup some of that, in other words, finance those improvements long-term, pay yourself back, then you get to do so at tax-exempt rates rather than taxable rates. So really, this resolution just preserves your options in the future to finance capital expenditures with tax-exempt debt, or finance it on your with your own funds and then reimburse yourself. Now, there are time limits for that. The reimbursement period, the reimbursement must be done within 18 months after the later of you spend the money or you place the project in service, okay? So there's a period of time. But just in discussing matters with the board on a routine basis, we understand you do have kind of stuff on the drawing boards, as we said, thought this was just a wise thing to preserve your options. It binds the board to nothing, okay? You're not obligated to spend a dime on anything or borrow money. This just puts in place what the IRS wants to see should you come back later and want to reimburse yourself for capital projects.
Kind of like borrowing from your IRA.
Sir?
Kind of like borrowing from your IRA.
Well, I don't know. Up on IRA, I tend to this. I really don't want to get outside.
I would like to recommend that we approve the reimbursement resolution for the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Do I have a motion to approve the reimbursement resolution?
So moved.
A second. Any questions from the superintendent of the board? Any questions from the public? I know we have some very smart financial people there. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thanks so much. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we're always wanting to make sure that we're being financially savvy as it relates to bond refunding. So the next item on the agenda is a resolution for us to engage Raymond James and Mayor Hoover for preliminary action of possible bond refunding. Again, you're not being asked, we're not asking you to commit to anything other than just engaging with Raymond James and Maynard Cooper. Does not include any cost at this point in terms of the individuals being available to advise us. But before I say more, color outside the lines again, I'll look to Tina and to Mr. Bush.
No, my turn already. Thank you all very much. Yes, we prepared this resolution as well. You know, I'm a bond attorney with Maynard Goodman. We have Mr. Matt Adams from Raymond James, who is the financial wizard. But what this resolution does was just establish a board-approved process by which the board may be kept informed on a very regular and almost constant basis, wouldn't you say, Matt, of financing alternatives with respect to refunding the 2010 issue of the board, which is larger than possibly the 2012. There are various options available in the market that Matt can speak to in some detail. But all this does is allow us to do whatever is necessary to keep the board posted as to possible interest cost savings on those financings. That's all this does. And while it is somewhat binding upon us to do that, it does not commit the board to do anything. If there is an option that's attractive to the board, then there'll be further board action at that time. Okay, nothing happens in a financial sense here except the information is now brought back to the board with your approval to do so on every 2 weeks, and at least every 2 weeks. We really just communicate with Ms. Hancock as to what's going on. That would be mostly Raymond James at this point because they're the ones that watch the market. If they need anything from us, we'll be there to support that. But that's what that resolution does. We're happy to answer any questions.
Yes, in terms of cost associated with this, I realize that what we're doing this evening is saying that we're engaging with you all are helping us look at bond refunding. But obviously, at some point, there's some cost incurred by the board. Can you talk about that?
I'm happy to talk about it from our point of view, and then Matt, if you want to talk about it from Raymond James' point of view. It helps us a lot to have the formal approval of the board to do this because we need for the rules of ethics and other things, you know, attorney-client relationship. You know, we shouldn't be just doing things on our own without your approval to do it. That being said, at this point, when it is exploring options and such, we may have to discuss with Matt what's legally possible if he comes up with a scenario, you know, can we do it? But our efforts at this point under this resolution be rather minimal. And so I can't imagine that there would be fees generated from our point, especially if the board chooses to do nothing. You know, that's something that we're happy to do. But the engagement itself helps us for, as I said, you know, the rules of ethics and insurance stuff to at least have, you know, a formal engagement. But,
So
I'm not expecting
sorry to interrupt. Matt, where do you get paid? Somewhere?
We would only get paid if one of these financing options actually takes place. And so basically what we're doing is we're just simply reporting back to Tina on a bi-weekly basis, kind of where the market is, what the savings look like we've identified about 3 different options to actually refinance these bonds, 3 different ways that we could refinance the bonds. And so at this point in time, we're simply just reporting back every week. There is a possible transaction that could be done today. Let me explain why it's necessary that we kind of report back. There's a possible way to refinance these today, and it involves a little bit more risk than just simply the way we've refunded bonds in the past. And so Tina's getting a few calls about that, and she wants to continue to evaluate that and make sure that the savings are worth the additional risk, which is a wise, you know, and kind of prudent move. And so, or one of the other options is we could wait until the call date, which is sometime next year. And so I think the thought behind this resolution is we just wanted to, at this point in time, we're not ready to say that we need to go down route A versus route B. At this point in time, we want to watch, but the market's moving every day. And so Tina wanted some ability to know on kind of a bi-weekly basis what the market's doing and, you know, not let things get out of control and all of a sudden we show up next year and say, well, I'm sorry, the savings are no longer there because the market's moving. And so to answer your question, we would get paid if we do a transaction in the next few months, or we would get paid if we did a transaction next year sometime. With that being said, I did try to put together a cost of issuance budget today. And we had a couple people that were out of the office that we rely upon for that cost of issuance budget. In addition, we're looking at several different options, and so it's a little like saying let's build a house and what's the cost on that, and not really knowing how many bedrooms are there at this point in time because we don't know exactly what financing mechanism we're going to use. And so we're putting together kind of the high side, so to speak, of what those costs would be. But like I said, a couple of people were out of the office today when we started to try and call around and get those costs. I did get maybe 75% of that cost of issuance budget put together. And then looking at that, we went back and looked at the 2015 issue and the 2012 issue, which were this board's last two public issues. And I can say with some degree of certainty that we're going to be below those amounts on a per bond basis, probably significantly below those amounts on a per bond basis. But we should have the full cost of issuance just after the 4th. And so that obviously would be part of the approval process if the board ever chose to go forward with any financing. That would all be in your packet and you would review every bit of that. But right now, you're not incurring any costs from Hayward or myself. And certainly we wouldn't charge this board anything if no financing chose to go forward. All we're doing at this point is just monitoring it and reporting back to Tina on what the market looks like and making sure that those savings don't slip away from us.
Mr. Hayward, is this open for competitive situation from other businesses like Matt's in? In other words, are we obligating ourselves for this advice here? I don't know much about bonds, how they work. In other words, we're by this resolution, if it's approved, would be bound to allow you to discuss with him on our behalf. What if pick another brokerage firm, if that's the right word for it, when to come forward and present a plan? How does that work? Are they free to do so, or are we
Let me say this. I think Tina has had discussions with other firms up until this point, and certainly since this is it's not really binding the board to do any financing. If there's a better option that presents itself, then certainly Tina has the discretion to come before the board and say, this is not the route that we need to go.
That's my question.
Go down.
I'm sure ethically and legally it's above board, so I'm not questioning all of that. I'm just trying to make sure that the options, and I know Ms. Hancock is very diligent about looking out for the district, so but I think I understand.
But if we approve this tonight to engage with you, I think what I want to just be sure of is, have we cut ourselves out of being able to have conversations with other brokers, bond folks?
You're welcome.
No, ma'am, and I would answer that for us and also for Matt, but this resolution is not entitled, the board can always rescind it for that matter, and you can always entertain other offers.
Because if we don't know if it's 20,000 or 2,000 or, I don't know what we're talking about might be the cost. I realize that's not here yet. But if we're making a commitment to engage with you and we can only engage with you, then whatever your fees would be, there would be.
I see, you're saying, once, if you pass this, then we're free to charge whatever regardless. No, we would still be subject to market standards and you would still be able to say, okay, we've got the information we need, now we'll, bid it out. The board is still free to do that.
I was around when we did the last two, and I appreciate the job you do, so please understand, I
Thank
question
you,
your
ma'am.
integrity. And
No, didn't occur to me.
These are questions, in fact, the last time we did this, we had a lot of the public come up and ask very good questions, so we're trying to respect them and ask the same questions.
Well, those are very good questions. No, and that's incumbent upon us to explain too, but the resolution like this is non-binding. We would consider ourselves, to have an attorney-client privilege from our end, okay? But as Matt said, if nothing comes of this, I cannot see us submitting any sort of bill. And anything that the board actually undertakes that would be, incur costs and that sort of thing would come back before the board and we know at that point what that is.
Since we got free advice tonight, Matt, what's the bond market doing?
the bond market's not doing anything this week, okay? And it's just part of the reason why we haven't been able to get in touch with many folks for purposes of requiring, there's 5 or 6 parties and we haven't been able to get in touch with several of them on the fee side of things. With that being said, there's a couple things that are driving rates right now. Some of it is the tariff and kind of trade war stuff that's going on a national and global level. The other biggie that kind of drove rates earlier in the year was tax reform. So we operate in the tax exempt market. And so whenever Congress decides to change the tax rates, that's great for us personally. But it means that less, especially when they're lowered, it means less people need tax exempt income when these are tax exempt bonds. So it makes it a little bit more difficult, and that's caused kind of an upward pressure on rates. That and the fact that you've just done a general economic cycle where the Fed's raising rates. And so I think that's kind of the reason why Tina wants to be, I don't want to speak for you, but I think that's the reason why she wants to look at this closely, kind of on a every other week basis, so that, we do have the 2010s are what we're looking at refunding. And it does save the board a good amount of money to refund the bonds. And, we just want to make sure that we do it in the right way, or at least I think Tina wants to make sure she does it in the right way. And she wants to make sure that those savings don't, evaporate if the market starts to move up. So that's kind of what we're monitoring through this.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And if you remember, we've mentioned this several times when we looked at year-end financials, we looked at last year's budget, and then when we also looked at our future needs. That bond payment will increase, really $1.8 million in 2019. So, I said then, I wanted to get in front of that and try to do some things, and that was the purpose of really bringing this forward now.
We have several conversations you have individually, I'm sure, with other board members about this, and thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board members, I would like to request your approval of the resolution to engage Raymond James and Maynard Cooper for preliminary action of possible bond refunding.
Got a motion to adopt the superintendent's recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's passed. Thank you.
CMP breakfast, lunch price increase. Do I still have Melinda? So Melinda, if you would, if we have questions, we have a request on the table to increase all of our breakfast and lunch prices by 5 cents. This is calculated based on using USDA price adjustment calculator for 2018-19. We always hate to bump breakfast and lunch prices up, but it becomes necessary with time, with cost of food and how many of our students we serve. And so the new price list, upon your approval of 5 cents this evening for breakfast and lunch prices, would be elementary lunches costing $2.40. Secondary lunches will cost $2.65. Faculty staff lunch, $3.25. And breakfast across the board would be $1.55 for all students. It's my recommendation that you approve the CMP breakfast lunch price increase of 5 cents.
Got a motion to increase the CMP program for breakfast, lunch, price increase?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any questions from the board or the superintendent? Would like to say, Ms. Bonner, we've given you a lot of compliments. Your staff always say that because you always recognize them. And we'll reimburse the majority of what we have in here. You have done this with a very, very lean staff. And you do, profit's not the word in a nonprofit institution, but that's what it is. You're covering the cost of the operation with reimbursements. And again, please thank your staff for what you do.
We want to keep it affordable for our students.
That's right. That's right. With good food, I would say, when I get invited. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? New process passed. Thank you.
Next, we have before us the Hoover City Schools Code of Student Conduct. Board members, we sent this to you. There's just been one moderate edit today. Dr. Simmons, and you can jump up and help me out. I wanted to be very careful how we presented our CSFOs and any role they play as it relates to discipline, and the role they play is none. It is not their role to be disciplinarians of our children. It is their role to be available for security, to support our students. Sorry, who does that? Oh, CSFO, y'all
Am I back in the classroom
I'm
now?
not sure I did that right. Let's start all over again. How's that?
I was very serious.
I just knew everybody was giggling. I didn't know what to check. So let's try this again. Our SROs should play no role as it relates to discipline matters in our school. And I was afraid there were a couple of places in our code of conduct where it almost sounded like they had some role with discipline. It is their role to provide us security, as you know. It's their role to address any activities, unfortunately, that might rise to a legal criminal level. And so there have just been a couple of moderate tweaks in that student code of conduct to address that. Otherwise, substantively, it is exactly what was before you, but if I could go ahead and ask your approval of the code of conduct, knowing that we just took some internal tweaks today just for clarification purposes, it is my recommendation that you approve the code of student conduct, allowing us those edits as I've noted.
Got a motion to change the code of conduct for Dr. Murphy? Second.
Second.
Any conversation with the board of the superintendent? What Dr. Murphy said, we talked about, we know the SROs are there to take care of those children. They have a police chief and a policy that they follow, and whenever it becomes time for our SROs, our police department to take over, they take over, and if it becomes a crime, the principals at that point gets turned over to our police. So we can never say thank you so much for what our SROs do in our schools. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This passes. Thank you.
Next, we have obsolete and outdated textbooks. If you'll take a look at the examples that we've given you, many of these are dated back to 1990. And so we have a request from Dr. Dotson, who oversees our textbook through curriculum and instruction, that you allow us to follow our process for addressing obsolete and outdated textbooks. Again, these are examples, but it's not all inclusive, Dr. Dotson. Some of our schools are still trying to call through some old textbook inventories, and obviously we will not put on the list for obsolete items anything that doesn't fit. Anything that's current obviously stays current, but I do ask your approval for us to be able to address the obsolete, outdated textbooks. Dr. Dotson, that disposal process looks like what?
Typically, we try to sell them if there's any market value. If not, then we recycle.
It is my recommendation that you approve us addressing our obsolete and outdated textbooks.
Do a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation involving obsolete and outdated textbooks. Second. Any questions from the board, superintendent? Any questions from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. They are now considered obsolete.
Under our information reports, I would ask that Tina introduce to us our individuals who are here to share our audited financials. So we will have a presentation.
Thank you, Board. We have just finished our audit reports, and we have secured Carl Ingram, and tonight we have with us our auditors, Jason Thorpe and Andrew Waite, and they will go over the audit report with you.
Dr. Murphy and the board, my name is Jason Harp. As Ms. Hancock said, I have Andrew Waits with me. We'd like to go over the September 30th, 2017 audit. I think in front of you have the financial statements, and I'm going to briefly go through those. Andrew's going to hit some number highlights, and we'll certainly entertain any questions that you might have. But as you know, governmental financial statements continue to get more complex, so forgive us for flipping, but if you'll look behind your report tab in your binder, you'll see our audit opinion, which is really this document actually, I would say, belongs to us. Everything behind this belongs to the board. And in this document, it goes through what our process is with a financial statement audit. And we're issuing an unmodified opinion on the board's financial statements at 9/30/17. That's certainly the opinion that you would want. There's 3 different levels, and this is the level that you would want with clean audit opinion, which you hear that term. So with that, I'll let Andrew go over some number items that I think are important chime in also, and then we'll have any questions after that.
Thank you. I'd just like to briefly kind of explain the nature of governmental reporting as compared to maybe a regular company would be in public accounting, and kind of get into some of the details. So if you go to page 5, there's really 2 sets of financial statements for a government. There's the government-wide statements, which include assets such as capital assets, land, buildings, and then you also have your long-term debt. So those statements are very similar to a regular company, like you would think about pulling the financial statement up of a public company, has all of those type of items. The other set of financial statements are probably what you're a little bit more used to hearing about from a budgetary standpoint is the fund statements. And they're much more current focused, revenues in and out, not cash basis, but a lot more it's called modified accrual. So a few items I would like to address on page 5. This is a statement of net position. Net pension liability, if you look on the right side of the page, kind of right there in the middle, what that number represents is $144,255,000, sorry. That number is really the net difference between the total pension liability that RSA's actuaries have determined the liability to be net less the assets that are on hand to pay the benefits. So this is really what over the next, say, 30 years or so that the board will owe for the pension benefits for the retirees. They're going to continue to make contributions every single year. RSA comes up with a rate that the board needs to contribute. And this liability kind of goes up and down, and it will eventually start to decrease as more and more assets are accumulated from the board at RSA. This year, kind of there's something a little bit different with the pension liability. As built into the actuary's calculation of this liability is a discount rate that they say, okay, well, we're expecting over 35 years to have an investment rate of return of 8%. Well, they lowered that to 7.75%. And really all that did was just kind of be a little bit more conservative and in line with what the earnings that they were actually receiving over the past 25 or 30 years. And so the liability did tick up a little bit, but something that's kind of interesting. And I guess if you play with your 401k or anything like that, you kind of look at, what the balance is going to be in 10 years if I earn certain rates of return. Like I said, they use a 7.75% investment rate of return. Had that rate been 6.75%, so just 1 percentage point lower, the liability would go up approximately $50 million. Now, if you earn 1% more, it's going to decrease approximately 40 to 50 down to 103 million. So it's very sensitive to that rate of return over a long period of time. Just as another point, there's about $5.7 million increase from last year, and a lot of that increase was due to this lowering of the rate to kind of be a little bit more conservative in their estimate.
And historically, since the late 70s, the RSA for the TRS, the Teachers Retirement System, generally has returned a little greater than 8%. So they're being relatively conservative with a 7.75% in their calculation, which I think is, from a fiscal responsibility, they don't want to overstate. We see some that may be a little too high, but they're slightly under what they have historically, yielded with the TRS.
Does the legislature, is there a state code that guarantees these be funded if they were to go insolvent? I'm talking about the state one.
I'm not sure with the cost sharing plan. There's a difference. The cities have an agent multiple plan that almost works very similar to kind of like a 401k, but they have their own account. So the city of Hoover has their own account at the RSA. The Teachers Retirement System's a cost plan. It's one huge pool, and you kind of think of it as a pie, and you have just an allocated segment of that overall liability. So I'm not quite sure in that cost sharing plan if there's any guarantee if anything went under that there would be any, guarantee by the state to fund that.
I'm not suggesting it's not healthy, but I thought that the ETF, Education Trust Fund, somewhat guaranteed solvency of this program.
Well, now, and here's one thing that's a little unique with the accounting related to these pensions. That $144 million, a good portion of that comes from ETF. You're paid through that. So really, what I think the board's on the hook for is your local teacher.
That's what I was going to
say. So through, the way that you're funded with this, we're required to put that whole $144 million on. if I were going back and almost doing a Warren Buffett, let me go back and tell you that, I understand accrual accounting, but what really are we on the hook for here would be those local teacher units. So you almost could come up with a ratio and say, I don't know what your local teacher units.
Twice as much.
Yeah, so if you could come up with a ratio probably to have some kind of idea of what you're on the hook for locally with 144 million. So
I'll say twice as much. We don't, we're more than fund our local units more than the state does by 2 times.
yeah. So that would really be that portion, I think, if we divided it out. So,
that answers that, thank you.
Just briefly also, as we heard earlier tonight about refunding, I'll kind of hit on this. This past year, fiscal year 17, the Series 2005 warrants were refunded with the Series 2017, and that's expected to reduce the debt service over the next 10 years by $1.2 million.
now, also for 2018, we're going to go through the same exercise that we went through a couple of years previously on your net pension liability. We're going to do that for other post-employment benefits. So health insurance, PHIP, we're going to have the same type calculation, and we're going to put a liability on 2018, 9/30/18 for that unfunded portion related to that. So there's going to be that change upcoming, and that'll be nationwide, where we're having a change in accounting rules related to the post-employment benefit liability. So.
Next, if you would flip over a few more pages to page 9, it's also a 2-page statement. And we'll just kind of summarize some of the totals here. Up there at the top, you'll see revenues, and it kind of goes across. If you look at the left, state of Alabama, revenues, federal government. We'll just go over to the total. We're just going to compare and contrast this year to last year for you. The state of Alabama, there's about $3.5 million more dollars received in 17. That was mainly due to the foundation that was received during the year, fiscal year 17 compared to 16. And then the biggest other change was the local revenues. As I'm sure you remember, the county commission, you received about $9 million of revenue from them that was quote unquote unexpected. It kind of came in near the end of the year, and that was good because it can be used for some future projects. City appropriation also increased, and then in general property taxes were about $1 million higher, I believe, at least in that range somewhere. So if you go down a few more lines, you'll see sale of capital assets of $11 million. The majority of that represents the sale of Old Berry High School. There's some other sales, some like miscellaneous equipment and stuff like that. But obviously, that's a one-time transaction that increased revenues and cash flow for the board considerably during the year. Compared for expenditures, actually, they in total increased $224,000. There was some changes between the categories of instructional services and instructional support. However, they were not really very significant. And the last thing I would really like to talk about is the Alabama Department of Education really wants every board to have at least 30 days of operating reserve on hand. Well, some boards have less and some boards have more than that, but let me pull this out here. Hoover is at 9 months, so y'all are more than adequately funded in that regard. So that's very positive, and we'd like to see that continue. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to entertain.
One component too, and I know just related to financial statement audits, one area that we really dive into is internal controls, and really over payroll. Obviously, if you look at your income statement, the biggest expense you have is payroll. So one area that we really do a lot of auditing over is internal controls related around payroll, and we'll make sampling tests to make sure that the controls you have in place are operating effectively. So we do that as part of the financial statement audit, and our goal is not to give an opinion on those internal controls, but we do look at those because we really need to rely on those to be able to have some assurance that especially the income statement is materially correct. So that's just kind of another thing that we do part of our audit. Also too, obviously federal awards, we spend a good bit of time doing a single audit related to federal awards programs, and we do that every year, and that's a risk-based selection. This year was Title I, so that was our focus this year in Career Tech. Next year will be another program, but that's kind of how we make that selection, and that's almost an entirely other audit by itself that's very thorough. It's more of a compliance compliance audit necessarily a numerical audit, so that's another component of just the financial statement audit.
Very good.
Questions?
We certainly appreciate Ms. Hancock also and her staff, Ms. McKay, they helped us tremendously. And I think tonight, just hearing some of the things that come up, I keep hearing accounting coming, fees and bonds, C&P. It's a huge umbrella that they're responsible for. And as we know, and I mentioned tonight, it seems every year that grows in complexity. So they have to keep up with all this and handle us and handle their day job. And I certainly appreciate that.
They do a very good job of keeping the books.
Big umbrella.
Yes.
We know they do an excellent job. Halfway educate the board, the other half is because we're too eager to run it, but they do a great job of explaining to us.
We appreciate it.
I should say we.
We appreciate Tina and Michelle, your entire department, thank you. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Two last things under information reports. We did have a work session at 4:30. And for those who are not with us, we talked about a program that would allow us to take a look at student data and also to look at our return on investment in terms of what monies we're putting into reading or math or programs or teachers, so that we can determine how successful we're being in terms of the money that's being invested. That particular program we looked at tonight was called Glimpse. There are lots of programs out on the market. I really just wanted to start that conversation tonight to allow us to look at some ways to start tracking data, and I like to say in real time, so that we can go to a dashboard, take a look at what's going on, drill down into the classroom. And so that is at least a program that we're looking at. The other is I'm exceptionally excited about what's happening at River Chase Career Connection Center. And I get enthusiastic every time we have that conversation. We really have a unique opportunity to get it right for lots of students. Not all of our students will go to college. Many of them will, and it doesn't mean that the Career Connection Center is off limits for them. That center can serve our students who are college bound just as well as it can serve our students who are interested in career opportunities right out of high school. And then lastly, board members, just remind you that on Thursday, we will meet in Montgomery to do some training with Alabama School Board Association. We'll be meeting in their building, and I believe that's set to start at 9 o'clock. I believe Susan Salter will be first up to do some training and some support with our board. And so I look forward to meeting you in Montgomery for that meeting on Thursday morning. We may want to talk about whether we get someone to bring us lunch in, because it's going to be a long, busy day, or whether we actually want to walk out, but that's a conversation we can have as a sidebar. So thank you. I look forward to that time in retreat with you.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. I think as chair, I can call for personal privilege, so I'm going to do so. Somebody can stop me. Earlier, late last week, Tracy Hobson, Arnold Singer, Dr. Hickman, Doug, and I can't remember his last name. We met at the Folklore Center. We discussed with you before that we're trying to get to with the city of Hoover, which they're very receptive to talking with us about allowing the Folklore Center, which is located just north of Bluff Park Elementary, is actually one piece of property. Tracy got us a map. It's about a little over 15,000 square feet. It's a very small footprint. We think the utilities are very, very minimal, somewhere around $50 a month. We're going to be very accountable to the district's tax dollars, but we hope to come, Dr. Murphy, to you and ask you to consider possibly in August, let the board consider entering into a lease with the city of Hoover for the purpose of allowing the Folklore Center to operate there. So just to let you know, we did some meetings, thanks to the staff that was there. If you haven't been there, please go. Mr. Singer's president. It is an 1850s building, really an era building, original, with some really old neat things in it. It's there for the children, not just of our district, but under organized situations for children of other districts to come and see the heritage from back around 1850, so it's very neat. Our next board meeting is August 14th at 5:30. Is there anything else?
Ma'am.
Okay.
So if I might take a point of privilege. Could I have HR stand up for just a moment? I know Mary is out, but if Christy and Carrie would stand up, and Mary can stand up virtually there too. These folks have just done a yeoman's work, really trying to help us work through the whole rezoning piece and who's moving where and what does this look like. Carrie, I just have to commend you for the work you've done to help bring names to the table. She's done some of our first level of going through applicants for lots of positions, including our two positions that we have for principals. So just kudos to you all, and so let me say thank you. Wayne, would you stand up back there? Ladies, thank you. Wayne, and I don't know if Lisa or any of your other folks are here. Wayne, I'm not gonna give you a chance to talk.
Please.
No. It is unbelievable what Student Services has done through this process of rezoning. Stand up.
That train is getting ready to leave the depot.
Stand up. We really appreciate Wayne and Lisa and Bob and all the folks who've just worked so hard to help us with this whole rezoning. The number of questions they've had to field and the number of conversations they've had with lots of parents, and not all of them always happy with this process. And Wayne, you all have done an outstanding job. I just want to thank Student Services for your work also.
Thank you. Now Tara's done some pitch hitting with us too, and the technology group too. So
Absolutely.
It truly has taken a village to make this happen.
But I've had more than two people come to me talking about how quickly y'all respond to an email. You always answer the phone. You're always professional and courteous and talking people off ledges, and it's just wonderful. I think y'all are fabulous.
Well, I've learned in this business, Amy, when someone's mad and angry, the quicker you can get with them, the less mad and angry.
That's so true.
Good strategy. And if I could just have just a couple more minutes, Brian, stand up, please. And I think Kelly had to step out, but the work that comes out of our technology department is amazing. They are short-staffed, although we're trying to support them further with some additional folks. We sometimes forget to put technology in the process of, hey, we got this great idea, let's go run with it, and then we sometimes forget the repercussions it has for them needing to implement those processes for us. And so thank you so much in our technology department. Let me swing back around. Melinda has not left us yet. CMP, I am so excited what we did this summer with feeding children who might otherwise not have had an opportunity to have a decent meal. This was a brainstorm out of CMP. You saw Melinda and both Tricia and Nura being recognized tonight for some other things, but hats off to the many children who were able to eat this summer, and the collaboration that we've created with our city and also with the Helping Hands group. So just thank you for that work. I'm so appreciative. David Mugg and Tracy, if y'all would stand up. I can't tell you how many times bright and early this morning I had Tracy on the phone. Tracy, I need this. Tracy, I need that. Tracy, can you give me these numbers? Let me just tell you a few things I've got these guys addressing. I'm wanting to look at Bluff Park. There's parts of that campus that need to come down. There's parts of that building that need some attention. We have the River Chase piece going on. We're trying to make decisions about whether to do the covered walkway at Hoover High School, and on and on and on. And sometimes I forget what time it is, and I'm calling and texting morning and night and all kinds of time, and they're always so amenable to helping us get that work done. So I just want to acknowledge them. And Jeremy, if you would stand up in the back. We're looking at probably 5 more routes that we're going to need to do this upcoming fall, 5 to 10. We're still trying to finesse those numbers. Lots of good training was happening out at your place even today. We have needs for bus drivers. We always need bus drivers. We need good bus drivers. We need substitutes. And the amount of work that's going on in his department this summer is amazing. So folks think kind of in the summer we're sitting back doing little to nothing. This is our critical work time. Michelle always gets mad when she gets recognized, but Michelle and Tina, y'all gonna have to just stand up. And anybody else in your department, what they do in their department is amazing. And I commend both of them. They're so willing to get the work done. I'm so grateful to the parts and pieces that they pick up and just make happen. Tina's done a great job with the salary schedule committee, the facilities committee, and on and on. And I think Tina would acknowledge that her right hand and left hand some days is Michelle, and
Always.
and so we're appreciative. Ron, stand up, take a bow, my friend. Curriculum just carries on, and Ron is an amazing guy. If you don't know this, smart beyond smart. And he creates charts and graphs. He's very analytical. He's helping us with all the sides of curriculum. He's helped us with rezoning. He's been my go-to guy on so much. And Ron, I'm so exceptionally grateful. I could go on and on, but I want to move to Tara. Tara's work has included this code of conduct. And right up to today, Tara just takes things and goes with them. I can't tell you how blessed I am to have Tara also on board, from discipline with our students to doing hearings to school safety and security, codes of conduct. I never ask any of our folks to do things that they're just not so gracious in doing. And who have I missed? Jason Gaston, stand up. He thinks he's hiding behind the podium. Jason's spent almost his entire year reworking our website. And to save our district money, he chose to do most of the training himself. And so I just have no idea how many hours and days and weeks you've committed to this project. We're proud of that site. It just gets better and better. And not just that, but he's helping us right now with Teacher Institute, along with a few other folks who are grabbing that piece. And his work is huge too. And so thank you, Jason. Did I miss anybody else in my department? Okay. And I'm gonna tell you, that Amy Thomas,
I'm kidding.
She's something else. We're grateful to our attorneys too. I have a few remaining principals who didn't give up on me. Principals, stand up. We're gonna get everybody. We're getting you too. We have the best principals in the state, barring none. I will hang my hat on these two and the other people who are serving in our schools. They do such an awesome job, and I'm so proud of our principals. I have made this commitment to our principals. The thing I feel like I've felt miserably on is being a good mentor to our principals. I'm hoping now that we have a strategic plan, and now we're moving on our way to rezoning and unitary staff. And some of the big pieces that was on the table we had to do first, we've done. And I'm so looking forward to learning from them and them mentoring me, and hopefully they can learn a little bit as I try to support and mentor them. I really hope to get out in our schools more, be much more accessible to these school leaders, and so I'm excited about that. I didn't go around the room so I could say, now I'm resigning, I'm leaving. It sounded odd to go around the room, so thank you all, and now I'm next. No, thank you. This is a great group of leaders. And I'm so blessed to just lead with some really good leaders. And I hope what I've been able to do is to walk through and show you how everybody's piece, every department is so critical to the success of the school district. In this building and out of this building. And I don't know, the spirit just hit me tonight. I say that. So you said port of privilege, I'm thinking I sure want one too. Let me just thank my staff and all of those out in our schools doing terrific work. Our teachers, custodians, the whole kit and caboodle. So thank you.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you for being here.
I just didn't have time, honey. It's fine. I'm gonna start the next meeting with that. Thank y'all for coming. Just come. Just